welcome to the SnoWest Show. I'm Ryan Harris. Real quick, this episode is brought to you by 320 Guest Ranch, located in Big Sky, Montana. It's only 5 minutes away from Buck Ridge and Carrot Basin. 320 Guest Ranch offers lodging and accommodations for your next snowmobiling trip. Single cabins and large full cabins with kitchens are available. Check it out at 320ranch.com. Also sponsoring the SnoWest Show this year, Fly Racing is the #1 gear brand in Supercross and Motocross, and they bring that same product innovation to snowmobiling. Whether it's monosuits, helmets, boots, gloves, or goggles, Fly Racing has you covered for your snowmobiling gear head to toe. Check them out at flyracing.com or at flyracing.snow on socials. And thanks to Deviant Ink for sponsoring the show. Head on over to deviantink.com and check out their custom wrap builder with new interactive design tools that make designing and customizing wraps easy. Their new colorizer tool randomizes color combinations until you land on the look that you love. Then try the design mixer tool to see all the Deviant Ink designs in the colors that you've selected. Check it out at deviantink.com. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the SnoWest Show. I'm your host, Ryan Harris. I'm joined here today with test riders Bruce Kerb and Justin Stevens. We have just ridden the 2026 Skidoos. I guess if you're watching this, you just saw everything pop up online. We've been able to go to Island Park and test these things out, try everything that's new. We really focus on the mountain stuff. So what we're going to talk about today in this first episode is the 2026 Skidoo Summit X and all the changes to that. We're going to give you every bit of detail that we have. We went through an hour-long tech session with the Skidoo engineers. And man, when Skidoo comes out and introduces these snowmobiles to the media, they bring everybody. Yeah, it's cool. They bring the whole team out. So we've got a lot of good information here. This first episode, we're going to focus on the 2026 Skidoo Summit X and all of the changes to that model. The next episode, we'll put a link up here. That's going to focus on the 2026 Summit X with Expert package, or just the Summit Expert is more commonly known. All of the changes, the weight reductions to the 2026 Summit Expert. So that'll be the next episode. And we're going to touch a little bit on some of the other stuff that we rode. We rode the Expeditions, which are the 20-inch wide tracks. I don't know if that one you call that a utility. That was one of the funnest sleds I've ridden. That blue one.
Yeah,
man, that thing.
I mean, it ripped and cranked down the trails too. So if it may be a good crossover from total trail utility.
Jeez. You might want to buy like a 6-pack of those, because if you get stuck, you just leave it.
That's right.
Just go back to the trailer, get another one.
Pick it up in the spring.
It was like 165 and a 20-inch wide track, and
yeah,
I mean that thing's got to weigh 200 pounds more than a mountain sled. Holy cow!
That's awesome.
And you get like that full cage front bumper. You could really do. I mean, you could go punch in some new trails into the backcountry with one of those.
Yeah, that's true.
Just throw that. What do they call those? Cow pusher bumpers
groomer
on there.
Yeah.
Take out some deer in the trail.
I was thinking trees, but deer too, I guess. Just mow whatever's over. All right, so let's talk about the 2026 Skidoo Summit X. If you're watching this again, you have seen this stuff. It just was released. We've ridden these things a couple weeks before the release date. So we're looking at a new Summit X, and this thing is 14 pounds lighter, the NA version. 14 pounds lighter.
That's impressive.
Like that's a big chunk of weight.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was walking into this, we walked into the shop there, and we had a few expectations, and one of them was weight savings. And granted, previous years, when some of these releases, they'll be like, yeah, we took some weight off. We took a bunch of weight off. We took 2.5 pounds off. It's like, okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll take it. That's progress. But rarely do you see a 14-pound chunk in 1 year.
Yeah.
And they took that out of the tunnel, the shortened tunnel, lighter materials, smaller coolant chamber, they call it radiator, smaller coolant capacity.
Right.
New coil over rear suspension. We're going to dive into that. Just a lot of lightweight stuff. A new S module. So let's just dive in here. Bruce, what do you remember them saying about that new A-arm? So is it just the upper A-arm that's new?
Yeah, I believe so. It's forged aluminum, which saves them 0.5 pounds on that.
That's half a pound total between the two A-arms, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, half a pound total, forged aluminum A-arm. This year it's bare aluminum. maybe they'll paint it in future years, but they wanted to really show it off. So it's just like that raw, bare forged aluminum.
Yeah, and it looks good.
Which is pretty cool. And then the new S module. So that's kind of the front end of the chassis. Like Skidoos come in 3 parts: S module, E module, and tunnel.
Yep.
And the S module is just basically just the nose of your sled that the front suspension attaches to. And it's a cast aluminum piece. So they reduced the weight of that by 1.5 pounds. And to do that, they said they had to come up with a new casting technique.
Yeah. Say they had to think through how they casted it and then where the reinforcements lie to handle that and still stay lightweight. So
so a lot of these techniques that they're coming up with are they're looking to other industries. They're either coming up with new things on their own, or they're coming up with new things from other industries, and came up with a way to because the S module is like that's like thin passageways in the actual casting.
Yeah.
Casts, I guess. I don't know. I can't remember my foundry class in high school, but so they've come up with a new way to cast a thinner material, but also put the reinforcements in there. And it's aluminum, and if you look at it, like it's a smoother finish on the outside. Like on the current S module, you can see like kind of the sand grains with it in the casting there. And this one's like really smooth. So whatever their technology is and whatever method they came up with is like visibly different. Yeah. But these guys are just looking at ways to save weight
and to keep it strong. Like you said, you always think lighter is weaker.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I think that's
it's
always.
stuff like
I mean,
this,
for every sled manufacturer, I think that's always the problem. We keep saying we want it lighter, and you kind of have that durability aspect. I know a lot of people always comment like, "Well, lighter, now we're gonna have them fall apart." So I think, I mean, you obviously can't. They're expensive sleds. People want to ride them and have them last, and so
and that's one thing Skidoo repeated quite a bit is we would not make these parts lighter if we weren't also making them stronger or as strong as before.
Yeah,
nice.
So I don't really have any worries there on this part being lighter. This is where I would throw in though, like, man, if you think putting on stronger A-arms and bigger, beefier front bumpers is protecting your sled, like that's where you run into trouble. Like your front bumper is supposed to be a crush point. It's supposed to absorb and prevent that energy from being transferred into more expensive parts that are harder to change.
Yeah.
Right.
When we went and met with Skidoo in Quebec back in September, and I made that comment on the previous show, the 850 review, that they had told us they're going to take weight out every year until they're the lightest sled out there. Yeah. So that's why we were walking into this sneak peek 26 reveal expecting a lighter sled.
Plus, he told you to bring your scale, right?
Yeah, that was surprising.
Peter texted you and said, make sure you bring your scale.
Yep, the night before, it's like, hey, is your scale up here? No. Well, can you bring it? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like we've never been able to weigh a prototype.
Right.
Like that's unheard of.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
We've asked to weigh prototypes, but they're like,
that's confidence.
They don't usually
build
want
right there.
No, that thing's got a steel over structure. Like we can't put that on a scale. Like, yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on there, but
that's cool.
So yeah, and so 14 pounds lighter. And while we're on that subject, yeah, we did weigh it. We weighed it on the exact same spot that we weighed our 2025 production test sled. Mm-hmm. So again, going back to our previous podcasts where we talk about all the 850 NAs, we weighed our 2025 Skidoo Summit X 154 3-inch. It has shot. It's got the small gauge, exact same configuration as this 2026. Our 2025, and this is full of gas, full of oil,
ready to
and a spare belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything that you would, the way the sled would sit if you were going to hop on it and go ride the whole day. That's how we weigh stuff. So our 2025 weighed 530.6 pounds. And then we put this 2026 Summit X on the exact same scale, the same location, and it weighed in at 515.8 pounds. So
you're
right on the mark.
Pretty right on the money for what they're claiming on weight reduction.
Yeah.
And they were like, this was our scale. Like we brought our scale, the scale we weigh all of our stuff. Yeah. So, they've got their own scale. They had their own scale there. Mm-hmm. So it's validating for sure that our scale and our 2025 to 2026 weight measurements reflected exactly what they were. tell they were a little bit nervous on what
Yeah.
that was going to actually
Yeah.
show up as. And that 2026 also full of gas, full of oil, spare belt, ready to ride.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a 14-pound weight reduction. Going back to the components, so what we talked about, the upper A-arm is lighter, the S module is lighter. So there's 2 pounds between those two things. Now let's talk about the tunnel. So in 2020, when Skidoo released that red and white Expert,
Yeah.
you remember that sled?
Yep.
That was the first year of the shortened tunnel, and they got rid of the big snow flap. And for 2026, they've gone even shorter. Let's see, the 154 tunnel is 45 millimeters shorter, so 2 inches shorter.
Yeah.
1.8.
1.8.
2
Yep.
and 3 on the 165. So
Yeah, so 5 pounds is removed off of this sled by going to a shorter tunnel, and then thinner aluminum on the top, on the sides, on the running board where the running board mounts to the sides of the tunnel, and then the cooler underneath the tunnel is also shorter.
right.
So it,
Saves 2 pounds there.
yeah, on previous
liquid.
models, Skidoo, they run that cooler all the way back to the rear bumper.
Yeah.
So now it runs back, I don't know, what would you say, about 10 inches behind the back of the
Probably.
fuel cell?
Yeah.
You know, and so that you still are probably going to have a bigger cooler than Polaris or Arctic Cat, because
Right.
they're stopped pretty much at the fuel tank.
Yeah.
So you've got more cooling capacity than those two, which is a point that they made. Like we want our sleds to be more resistant to overheating on hard packed snow. So
Yeah.
we're still sticking with a little bit longer, but it's not full length. So they shorten that cooler and allows them to cut their coolant capacity by 2 pounds.
2 pounds.
So 5 pounds on the tunnel, 2 pounds less coolant, so 7 pounds off the rear end there.
Right.
That's a chunk of weight.
Yeah.
It is. You know, and on that cooler, you're not going back as far. You're going to have less snow buildup on your rear tunnel also. I feel like a little bit.
Yeah, I took some pictures. I took some videos too. I'll pop those on here. I think it depends on the day,
Gotcha.
because you can heat up the tunnel
Enough to
start collecting snow
Yeah.
around certain parts. And I did see some of that, like the Skidoo was collecting a little bit of snow.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Cat, no snow. You don't
Yeah.
get any snow buildup on the tail end of that tunnel.
Right.
The Skidoo, where that cooler comes back a ways, like we were still seeing a little bit of snow build up, like right back on the rear bumper and on
Yeah.
kind of
that's
on the
true.
corners.
Residual heat.
So a little bit there, but I do agree with that. I think overall you're going to carry less, because the full length cooler on like a 2025, like, yeah, we get
Carried a lot of
you get a
snow.
lot of buildup.
Yeah.
Just because you're melting snow and it doesn't just drain off because it's
Right.
melting. It's freezing on the top, it's melting on the bottom, and it just kind of sticks.
Yep.
They took a pound out of the air box, and this is by using new material. There's some fiberglass structure on the turbo model, and that stays. So on an X turbo, that fiberglass piece stays. So the airbox weight on a
that's why there's
turbo
a difference.
is not the same as an Xbox weight on an NA.
Yeah.
So the NA goes a pound lighter from the airbox. The turbo version does not get that change. And let's see. Now let's dive into the rear suspension. What do you think of that when you walked in there? Like, you saw that right off the bat, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool. Well, coilovers look cool for one.
Yeah.
You know, but
And you could see it,
you could.
because we walked in the shop and they have these things covered, and all the media's in the shop, and all their engineers are in the shop, and they have all these sleds covered, and they do mountain one day and then trail the next day. So, second we walked in, like, yeah, what's under there?
Something
Yep,
different.
all right, that's
Yeah.
different. There's
Yeah.
coil over under there.
Yeah, I was excited for it, especially after we got on it. I mean, you could tell. I could tell difference right away. I think that was the first one I got on, and then we hit that bumpy trail, and then you swapped me. And the minute you left, the first bump I hit, I'm like, I want that sled back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You could tell it
Did
just
make a
rode better,
difference.
like it absorbed better. It didn't have the rebound like the old, the T-Motion does. So it just absorbed and then come up slower. So
Yeah.
it was ready for the next bump
A little
instead
different,
of trying
different
to
rate.
buck
on
you
the-
off.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
it works really well.
You took off from the shop on the 26. I took off from the shop on the 25.
Yep.
I love. I try to do my testing that way all the time.
Yeah.
Start off on the 25 current model year, get my baseline, just to get that feel, and then we swapped, we swapped on the single track goat trails, so
Yep.
we were hitting those moguls. And
Yeah.
like you're saying, like instant.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
That's pretty funny.
And I think, well, maybe we can get into that now, but I think that T-motion with the coilover complements each other better than just the regular T-motion. I felt like it wasn't a complete T-motion. Like it felt more rigid, I guess, a hair. You know what I mean? But still had the T-motion aspect of it.
Interesting.
I thought it was a good combination, I guess.
I think it's a better mountain suspension.
Yeah, I do too.
And I've thought about a lot that too, because on a torsion spring suspension, you still have your shock and your rear scissor arm, and the shock is central, and then the torsion springs, you got these steel springs that are to the left and right of the shock.
Yep.
So you're taking your mass and you're moving it out, and anytime you move that off center line, now you've got weight that has to be lifted.
Yeah.
Anytime the sled twists and rotates.
Yeah.
So if you get rid of those coil torsion springs and put the spring over the shock that's on the center line, I think it helps the way it handles.
Yeah.
It just felt more responsive, like you're saying.
Yeah, it did.
Just a better mountain setup.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's called T-Motion X with coilover. The whole rear suspension accounts for 2 pounds lighter. And they claim that this is now the lightest suspension on the market for a mountain sled. They say it's 39.3 pounds on the 154 Summit X rear suspension. 39.3 pounds. It's pretty dang light.
Yeah.
And then their track, we'll get into that in a second, but the track also is 2 pounds lighter. So between the tunnel, the rear suspension, the track, that's where the bulk of the weight came off, was the rear end of this sled, which is where I've always thought it needed to come off.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's that the sled's always felt light in the front end, so it'd be interesting to see how it changes riding styles and maybe even just the feel of the sled, because now you've probably shifted a center point of weight to a different location on that sled, I would imagine. So
Yeah, we should have done that front bumper, rear bumper
Yeah,
weight.
we should have.
Those Skidoo engineers love that. Like
Yeah.
when we did that in our 850 NA, like they talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
They brought that up at dinner. Like they thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, and there's a million different ways to do that. And a lot of the weights that we do, it really is we're just trying to see a comparison. Like what's a percentage of weight distribution, so that we understand it's because it's hard. I mean, whether you weigh it at the spindles or you weigh it at a place on the skis or front bumper, rear bumper, like whatever, it doesn't really matter. We're just trying to see a displacement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes,
Yeah, it's not exactly NASA over here.
yeah, I mean, and even when we weigh the sleds themselves, I mean, like the 530 to 515, that's the same scale, same mounting point. It's probably not what they'd publish in their brochure, but that doesn't really matter. We're just looking at comparisons, and then we try to compare as evenly as possible. And so, again, like, I think the reason they like that is because it's not an exact weight, but it does help them see what where weight distribution is. And I'm sure they already know that, but it's kind of a fun stat to look at.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they were excited. We're talking about that quite a bit.
It is, and we've been through. I mean, we've been through these new model launches for years and years and years, and I mean, I'd run out of fingers and toes counting how many times their math didn't add up when we actually go weigh the production sleds.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're like Skidoo. I'm saying all of them,
Right.
all four brands back in the day. The math just never was there. Some years it was accurate, some years it wasn't. So for them to say, we took 14 pounds off it, and hey, we want you to weigh it with your scale.
Yeah.
That's confident.
And,
That's
and
awesome.
see it. And yeah, we saw 14 pounds off of that. Back to the rear suspension. So T-Motion X with coilover. Coilover, we talked about that. It's awesome. So some of this 2 pound weight reduction came out of going from torsion springs to the coilover spring on the rear shock. They removed the external limiter adjuster. That's the thing on the side of the tunnel. Like that obviously adds weight.
Yeah.
But now you're just at a fixed position on the limiter strap. The coil spring on the front shock, the front track shock, is lighter. It's one of those lightweight springs. It's not titanium. It's still steel.
Steel. Yeah.
But it's lighter. There's a new ice scratcher that is stronger. It directs more snow inside the rear suspension, better cooling.
Change the position so that it maybe hits the radiator, because that shorter radiator, I think they were trying to make sure they got enough snow up to that. So
Yeah, because a lot of the snow that hits the radiator comes from inside the track. Like you think it's what the lugs are scooping up, but they have all those holes inside the track, the openings. So you put stuff inside the track, it spins, and
Throws
then
it out.
when it hits that rear axle, it comes up, and what's near the holes gets thrown out, and then the scoops carry it up and throw it on the cooler. And the new scratcher, the bottom tip of the spring is like this flat edge. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Of all the jobs at Skidoo, I wouldn't want to be the one coming up
The
with
scratcher designer.
But they just designed this thing so the way it hits the snow, it's picking up more
That's cool.
stuff off the surface and aiming it inside. That was really cool. This new rear suspension, the coilover, gains almost half an inch of travel,
Oh, that's awesome.
which gives it 2 inches more travel than Polaris, they claim. So, and I think you feel that, like there's more travel on this snowmobile, which is why I think I like it more in the bumps, like on those goat trails going in. Like 2 inches is a lot more travel. Like
It is
you
a
think
lot.
2 inches on a dirt bike?
Yeah.
That's a ton of travel.
Especially, I mean, especially with, because that's not just straight up 2 inches. I mean, you've got some valving in there that changes and the rates at which it rebounds and compresses. So I think it's significant because a lot of times it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot when you're riding down a bumpy trail.
Yeah, it's kind of an articulated path.
Yeah.
that it's
2
traveling on,
inches
but
isn't a lot.
No.
Dang it. Just wondering.
maybe in St. Anthony.
Just wondering.
But it's a cool looking skid. Like you look at a side profile
Yeah, it looks
shot
good.
of that. Like
Yeah, it almost looks like a mod skid
it does.
in a way,
Yeah.
like the old hill climbers used to run.
It's just, it looks so much more modern. Like a coilover skid looks like a mountain skid. A torsion spring skid that's for crossovers
Yeah.
Yeah.
and trails.
Yep.
We talked about the new scratchers. Now talk about the track. So did you talk to those guys in kind of detail about what all they did with that?
Just not real detail, but made it thinner, and then
But again, they said the same thing. Like we wouldn't have
still strong.
gone
Yeah.
thinner or lighter here if our durability testing didn't back it up.
yeah, for sure.
So
So yeah, they do their homework on that stuff for sure. So yeah, thinner track belt is 20 thousandths thinner, and then the outer lugs are narrow alternating. So every other lug on the outside is
Yeah.
narrower by, they don't have a,
I think it's like a quarter inch.
Quarter inch or something?
And,
Yeah.
so pretty cool how they can just take little bits out that don't affect the durability, don't affect the performance of a track, and still make it good, but lighter. That's rotating mass right there that you're getting rid of, which I don't know. I'm not a math person, but it's probably more than 2 pounds, rotating.
Right.
But
Sense of however that works.
and that's a big circumference, like the track circumference rotating. Like
Yeah.
like I think that has something to do with it too. Like the farther away you are from your center or from the axle, I guess. So
Yeah,
2 pounds in rotating mass on a track is
it's quite a bit.
pretty big chunk of weight.
Yeah, so pretty cool.
Because that sled felt, well, let's just polish this off. New snow flap and tail light, 27 grams, but the brake light is kind of cool looking. Instead of being like the full width of the snow flap, it's just like, it's kind of a cool little setup there. And then the snow flap is a little bit longer just to pick up.
A little more snow.
Yeah.
It's a
I
shorter
think
tunnel
I said it was
probably.
a little bit longer.
Yeah. I think
So
you're right.
you cut the aluminum, and then you added just a little bit more plastic on that snow flap. But
Yeah.
That is cool though. I mean, at 27 grams, you're like, okay, it's 27 grams, but that's, it's like your grocery bill. I mean, it adds up. So
Yeah.
you take all these little things. I mean, that's how you get to your 14 pounds. You got to, and I love that. I mean, Skidoo is really good at, I know we were joking about the ice scratchers, but it's really cool that, they shortened the cooling system and then, but and they could have easily just left what was there. But I love that they always go the extra mile to make sure that, okay, now that we've done that, have we caused any problems and how do we remedy that? And to even go just adjust the spring location and maybe even the shape of the tip so that it shoots a little bit more snow into the track. I think that's one of the cool things about Skidoo. They really do seem in tune with, when we talk about that commitment to make it lighter but not lose any durability or anything else. I think performance,
cooling or anything.
Yeah, they do stuff
That is pretty
intentional,
cool.
not just to make it look cool or and they do that too. But it's pretty cool. They're a good group of guys. So
Yeah.
I like how they bring the whole team. I mean, they'll bring 30 guys out from the engineering department and say, okay, you're in the West. You're going to go ride. You're going to go see what you spent the last 2 years designing. You're going to go feel that and see what it does. And then you're going to hear some feedback and see what other people think of it, the people that actually buy this product.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool, where they try to get the whole team out on the snow in its element rather than just, the backyard in Quebec,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but really getting it out there. And these guys, I would also say the majority of these guys are snowmobilers at home in Quebec.
Yeah.
Like these guys ride product.
Well, just watching them, when they ride with us. There's
Yeah, they're great
up
riders.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, these guys are good
Cool.
mountain riders. Let's talk a little bit about riding this now. So we've gone over all the new changes and updates on the 2026 Skidoo Summit X 850 154 3-inch. I'm just going to hit on those again really quick. So half a pound on the A arms, 1.5 pounds on the S module, 5 pounds on the tunnel, 2 pounds on coolant, a pound on the airbox, NA only, 2 pounds on the rear suspension, 2 pounds on the track, 27 grams on the snow flap, and there's more things in there that they've done, but just not enough to really go into detail. So there's a little bit more, like on the rear suspension when you go from a torsion spring to a coilover, that whole rear arm assembly changes. So the design of that changes, the structure of it, the weight, and everything. So 14-pound weight reduction. We rode this thing. What did you think?
Like I said previously, on the bumps, you could tell instantly that it was better. The suspension held up better.
Both front and rear, or just rear suspension? Or
I would say the whole sled, honestly. I guess more the rear. You just don't have that rebounding.
Right.
That's feels like sometimes it's gonna throw you over the handlebars, but just absorbs better. So that was my first initial, like after we got off the groom trail onto the goat trail is what you call them. You could tell, and then especially after you switched, and I got on the 25. There was a difference, and I couldn't catch you to switch back, but anyway, because he was gone. And then in the mountains, go ahead.
That thing on the goat trail on that. So we're talking about like access trails, and we said in other podcasts, like every riding area has this.
Yeah.
Maybe. So what, we rode the groom trail for half a mile, and then we get onto this goat trail, access trail, whatever you want to call it, single track. They're always bumpy as hell.
Yeah.
And big moguls, and that's part of the fun. I mean, that's part of the ride. It's always part of the ride in. It's always part of the ride out. Like sometimes we'll come through the trees and we'll just miss all of that. But I rode the 25 production sled in for a ways, stopped you in the middle of the trail, bumpy trail, and swapped, and got on that 26 and took off. And immediately I'm like, holy cow, this thing feels like someone's lightweight mod build.
Yeah.
Just the front end, like the whole sled, not just the front end came up more, but the whole sled just lifted out of holes better. And the rear suspension just reacted better. And I know they were saying, okay, they were trying to prep us like, this isn't as plush as a torsion spring. This isn't plush. It's like, I don't want plush.
Yeah.
Like plush is for
when it says it's not plush and
Plush is
more
for broad.
lively, it's like, that's what we're after.
Like
I mean, we're not really looking for plush. Nobody likes those trails in necessarily. I mean, they're kind of fun to bounce in, but it's not the highlight.
Yeah, Brock likes plush.
But we ride them in to
Brock
get to
probably
where we want it to be, but we don't need plush in the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of your mountain guys are a little more aggressive, and they're going to hit things a little faster just to get through it quicker and get it over with.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you've got guys that are going to go slow, just up and over every single flipping mogul.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what your suspension does at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be on an 86 Yamaha Exciter for
It'd be the same experience.
and get there at the same point. But if you're trying to blitz these things or double them or triple them, this coilover setup works so much better.
I felt like the sled stayed more balanced, and maybe that's just the
Front to
rebound.
back or side to just
front to back.
Front to back,
Like it just stayed, I don't know, more level. I guess.
It did, yeah. And it if you were so say it's like a sweeping left hand bend in this series of moguls. If you're in that turn and you're kind of bouncing through the moguls, it's staying on the turn rather than jumping in the air and wanting to land flat and then needing to
rocking and
correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about like a turn in that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So.
and I don't know if it's just all the mass together coming off the rear end that just, like you say, balances that sled out to where the front end always felt light, the rear end now feels lighter.
Yeah.
Or if it's the center line stuff of the torsion springs being gone and now you're at coilover, but man, it instantly just felt like, holy cow, this is a different machine.
Yep.
And it ran great. So now, we get out of the access trail and we get up into, start getting up elevation, gain snow, deeper snow, fresh stuff.
I felt more comfortable on it. It felt more, I guess, natural to me. Yeah, I never did think I was on a T-motion, honestly. And where last year or a couple years, last 2 years, you can always tell when you're switching to that T-motion. I've never really enjoyed the T-motion since they brought it out. It just feels tipsy. Even though it come over easy, it just felt awkward. Like it always felt like it went and then stayed instead of kind of bouncing out. Does that make sense? And this
doesn't really make sense coming from an Alpha 1. Like
I know, and it don't, but it does if you think about it long enough. But no, I know coming from an Alpha, yeah. But no, I felt like the coilover was easy to throw over, but it wanted to, kind of float, I guess, back and forth as you maneuvered. Mm-hmm. It followed you instead of wanting to stay, and then you're having to kind of throw it back over. Even though the T-motion is really easy to side, I know this is really confusing, but the T-motion wanted to stay, and then you kind of had to work back to get center point and then back to the side, if that makes sense. Where the coilover just kind of naturally went with what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think you've got a point in when you initiate a side heel or whatever, either direction, you've got a point where it's the suspension and the track flexing, and then all of a sudden the weight comes over the fulcrum.
Yeah.
So
that's a better way to put it.
You've got a little bit of that. So you've got kind of the springboard effect. Like, okay, now I'm riding the edge of the track. I'm riding the suspension. Now I've got the weight over. It's like a spring step.
Yeah.
Type feel to it. But on this 26, I found I had way more confidence on it being on an X.
Yeah, me too.
Like I noticed myself like, holy cow, I can look up. I can look 20, 30 feet or 20, 30 yards farther ahead of me. And this thing just reacts better. Where on the 25, I would try to have confidence in it, and then it would feel a little weird, and all of a sudden I'm looking back down right in front of me, and I'm like, shoot, I got to keep my head up. But on the 26X, I don't know if it's coil over, I don't know if it's just being lighter. The whole machine just handled better.
Yeah,
and just felt I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I mean, you go back to the first episode in our 850 review. Not a big fan of the 25X.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get him on it because he didn't, just to see what
I got in trouble for it a couple times. Yeah.
Well, they gave us a lot of crap, but I mean, whatever. We ride what we ride. We spend a lot of time with these. And one thing I was going to say back to them, but I never did, and I wouldn't just because I want it to kind of be organic. When we do the turbo tests, it's a totally different outcome.
It is, yeah,
for sure.
Because the way that skidoo handles with the turbo. Man, it's
hard to beat.
It's a different feel.
Yeah.
But this 26X, holy cow, like sign me up.
Yeah.
I would take one of those NA. I don't need a turbo on it. We rode the turbo version. We'll get into that in just a second. But the NA version had the same feeling as going from almost going from an 850 Chaos to a 9R Chaos. Just, how that the 9R just feels like I'm ready to go. Like mod sled, like rippy, lightweight feel, like the weight difference. I know it's only 14 pounds, but man, this sled feels totally different.
Yeah, they did a good job.
When you say you can keep your head up more and kind of direct it more, did you feel like it was more predictable in that instance? Like because I think that's what, I think a lot of us kind of tore down on the 25 was it was just hard to be predictable. It just felt like we were along for the ride, and so that's what we've kind of hoped for. But that's kind of what you're saying is you felt like maybe you could keep your head up because you didn't have to worry so much about what changes were going to occur underneath your feet, and just be confident where you're going. Is that kind of
it still had all the easy initiation that they tout on the X.
Yeah.
It's easy to just kind of rock it back and forth.
It really is.
But it kind of eliminates that spring step like we were talking about. Like it's just it's a better transition, smoother transition over to get it on edge, and just I guess more predictable, more confidence inspiring, more predictable.
Nice.
But not any harder. No, not harder to initiate at all. Like very easy to initiate. But yeah, I could lift my head up and just look at. I could pick out my next 3 gaps and lines. And that thing would just go where I was looking without having to like look down and concentrate. Where I feel like the last 3-4 years on the X, I have to pull my eyes down because I lose that confidence. And man, we spend a lot of time on the skidoos. I know they give us crap on, you spend a lot of time on a cat, which you do. But But I probably, the last 3 years, I would say probably overall a little more time on a Skidoo. If you just go the last 2 years, because the snow has been more marginal last season, I was on a Polaris more. I mean, lightweight sled. I'm going to be on it more when the snow sucks because it's less mass to lift. But holy cow, I can't say it enough. The 26X just felt like a rippy lightweight mod sled, and it's only 14 pounds. Like I can't state it enough. Weight matters.
Yeah.
Get these sleds lighter.
It does. What about body position? Did you notice any differences in just overall body position on the 26 versus 25? Or?
Yeah, I feel like I could, it's a comment you made. You just feel like you can't get far enough forward.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm asking. I'm just curious. I feel like I'm always like stepping into the front, the body panels and like getting as far forward as I can, and I feel awkward, I guess, because maybe I'm just not used to it enough. But that's why I was kind of curious if it.
No, I think I was riding a little more back, a little more neutral, more of a, I don't know, just more of a neutral
natural.
stance. Yeah, more of a natural position.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like I had to get over the front end as much, and it side hilled better. It would come out of a side hill better, more consistently. Like sometimes you get on an X and you carve, you look uphill and you carve into your line into where you're looking, and next thing you know, you're laying in the snow, not moving.
Right.
But on this thing, it'd follow your eyes just better.
Yeah. I feel like my feet weren't moving as much either. Sometimes on the Skidoos you got foot placement doing.
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't do that as much either.
Yeah.
On that.
Interesting.
And that shorter tunnel, I'll say this, the tunnel being almost 2 inches shorter helps.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're up on your tail. Like, that's one thing where I think I would like to see that at some point. Like, bring the tail end of the tunnel narrower. Like, if you're standing above it looking straight down, bring the tail end of the tunnel narrower. And I think that helps when the snowmobile is wheeling, going through its own trench, and it keeps the tunnel from dragging the sidewalls of the trench. Mm-hmm. But this tunnel being 2 inches shorter helps. Same effect.
Yep.
Like, so when you're standing up, it just feels like the track has more grip. Like you can do like a little re-entry loop out, whatever you want to call it. Like, when your line gets pinched off, just stand this thing up and spin it around and come back down on your own track. Way easier.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
What other thoughts do you have on it?
I don't know. It looks good. Like the colors are good. I like that orange accent with the gray.
Yeah.
It's a good looking sled, and that coilover suspension just makes it look that much better.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that coilover. It just looks good.
It does. It makes it look more modern and more like a.
It looks more mean. Like it's a mountain sled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like it's almost like going to a hill climb and looking at a race sled. Like it's like ready to go.
Yeah.
And that. That's a good point.
Awesome.
The turbo version. So we the first half of our ride session was NA's. Second half of our ride session was a long ride on the turbos.
Trying to block that one out.
Well, we took the turbos, and it's like, well, okay, now we're going into the
deep.
We're dropping
turbo
off this
country.
north side. Yeah. So
I jumped on the free ride.
Yeah.
The first.
I kept telling you, like, we're not here to test the free ride.
I know, but nobody else. That was the sled left. So I'm like, well, I'll take it for a minute. I was on it for way too long.
Yeah, you were.
Holy cow.
I took off on the X turbo going into that line.
Yeah.
Going into that north facing zone. And that's probably one of the best sledding experiences I've had in the last 5 years. Like that thing, I was in sync with that thing. Like,
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, sorry I didn't come back and
we
help you
didn't see him
suckers
for an
get
hour.
unstuck.
I'm stuck. Fred's
else is
stuck.
stuck.
Yeah, everybody else is stuck.
Yeah, Pascal's stuck. Like,
Ryan's like, I can't hear you. I'm in a good zone, but I can't hear you.
are you guys coming? Yeah, we'll be there in a minute. Okay, just follow my track.
Yeah. 3 hours later. No.
But it was beautiful. It was probably the deepest snow I've been in this season, and the tree gaps were like, we just hit that zone where the tree gaps are perfect.
Yep.
And holy cow, that sled! I kept looking down like, am I on the X? Because this thing is not doing X stuff.
Yeah.
It's
That's
Dude,
good.
X-rated
And
stuff.
so we came through this one hill where we were trying to get at the end when everybody was getting stuck. So
Yeah.
we dropped in a little too low
Yeah.
in the shit trees. And we were in the good spacing. And back in that spot, like every now and then you'll get like a little gap that's like, I don't know, 9 feet wide. And it's just it's a straight gap up. And I came across the side hill right in neutral position and turned, and I was just fully expecting to just overturn or wheelie and have this thing come up and just stick, wash the track out or something. But I came through a tree gap, turned up one of those things, got on the gas, had to get forward on it because, it was a steep climb. You know that zone.
Deep, yeah.
And, man, just tail walk this sucker, and I'll throw a video. 'Cause I looped around and videoed this. I'm like, well, that was pretty wild. And just tail walk this sucker and just went up that flipping mountain. And it was so flipping fun and so predictable and so easy to control.
That's cool.
And I'm telling you, it's because of the weight. Coil over and weight. Like, weight kills you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you've got it. And I hope these things, man, I hope we walk in there next year and it's 15 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That'd be killer. But man, just whatever they did, the sum total of everything that they did this year, that X is a wild machine.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pushing the expert. Like
Yeah.
it's coming in behind the expert.
It's interesting, and we'll get into the expert on the next episode. So that line I was just talking about, that was on the X Turbo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a turbo zone. That was a turbo line. The X and the expert got, like, they diverged. Like yes, the X is getting closer to the expert in a way, but
then the expert's gone.
But they also change.
Yeah.
but they're diverging.
Yeah,
Like they
they
are
are.
two wildly different machines.
But I mean, as far as like if I had to choose, like they are different machines, but you wouldn't go wrong with either one. I guess is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Where before we're like expert. Okay, maybe expert. Now it's like
Yeah.
you could go either one and be totally happy.
Yeah, for the last since 2020, when we put in our request for what we want to be riding and testing the next season, the production sleds, I'm always expert. Give me expert.
Yeah.
Free ride here and there. An X. We asked for an X this year just so it would be lighter,
Right.
to compare with everything else. But I'm always asking for expert. Exactly what you're saying. But holy cow, I'm an X guy. I think on this
Yeah, for
26
sure.
because it's lighter. The expert got lighter, but not as light as the
Right.
X.
Yeah.
And then the expert got the narrow S32 front end, which we'll talk about in the next episode.
Yeah.
That
That's different.
you got to be. I will say you got to be an expert rider now to ride
Yeah.
the expert. Like it is a pro caliber sled.
Yep.
But it didn't get the rear end.
So-
No, it
Which
did not
you're-
get the coil
which you're
over.
loving, right? So, so definitely, I was thinking that when you were explaining it before, we were talking about it. Like, you can definitely tell they've tried to differentiate just a little bit, or maybe it wasn't on purpose, but it seems like maybe they're trying to.
I think it is on purpose to a degree. Like I think they're saying, okay, the expert, we're going to do as many wild, crazy things to make this thing the ultimate knife in the drawer,
Right.
and like knife, like narrow, like that
Yeah.
32-inch front end is narrow. It takes some getting used to. It feels like a Skidoo, but you don't put any upper body weight into this sucker. You stay neutral and just go
hang
on
on.
that expert. And we'll dive into that
Yeah.
tomorrow, or on the next episode. But we can definitely talk about it a little bit now if you want. But yeah, the X, I fell in love with that thing, and I Skidoo, thank you for dropping weight on this sucker. Like, keep it up.
Yeah, they did a good job. It's crazy what the little things will do to change a sled.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
it's good.
Did you get on the X Turbo very much?
For a little bit. I think we swapped there for a little bit. I didn't get to ride it as much, but
You're too busy getting that free ride stuck.
yeah, it's too busy.
How many times did you get that free ride stuck?
Don't ask. I went to South Fremont. I can't count that high. I just remember looking back and seeing the Skidoo guys I could just see their swearing under their breath. Because I'd go, they'd get me unstuck, and then I went to go, and my foot slipped off, and so I tried throwing the sled, and then it just dove again, and then they just look at me, and then they come help me, and then, I'm not kidding, I bounced off a tree, and I think I got stuck 4 times within 100 feet.
Well, it was
50 feet.
It was that
I was so mad.
It was that punchy snow. It's got like
Yeah.
sugar touching the ground, like granular
Yeah.
snow. and then it has that layer, that weird layer that grabs
and then
you,
more granule.
and then more granule on top.
But you can still break through that lower layer.
And then
so
you
that's
got
where
little
you get
jack
trouble.
pines, so there's just.
Yeah, the air pockets everywhere because we just
I'm not making excuses, but I felt like a newbie.
But that pocket because after I did my loop, I came back down, and then we were all in that pocket, and we were all in those little pines.
Yeah.
And you were hitting air pockets, and you were punching through that firm layer in the middle, that persistent layer. And we were all just stuck, out, corner, stuck, out, corner, stuck. Like just
to the
trying
point
to
where
loop
Fred's
around.
like, I'm walking. Yeah. He started walking up the hill.
Yeah.
That's
that was the end of the day. We were wiped out.
Yeah.
We were 2 hours late.
Yeah,
it was fun though. You look back,
kills you.
We'll always remember that.
Yeah, it was one of those. We got some papers to frame and everything.
That's funny.
All right, real quick. So Justin, let's talk about the expeditions.
Yeah.
We rode these the following day, and this is I guess kind of the utility line. Like they have this expedition sled, but it comes in so many configurations. It's a 20-inch wide track.
Yep.
And you can get it in the Expedition Extreme, which was, I think, kind of the favorite we had that day.
Yeah.
Then you can get it in the Expedition Touring or whatever. I'll have to go back and look up these titles. I don't spend time Googling trail sleds, but the 2-up sleds that we rode, like we had a lot of fun on that.
It was actually fun. It was good because it was actually really cold. So first day, Ryan and I both got on the tall windshield ones and took off, and it was fun.
Were you guys like Dumb and Dumber on the 2-up?
Pretty much.
Is that what it was?
We talked about that. Like, let's leave one of these behind and just go 2-up for a while.
Yeah, I talked about it. You guys probably did that.
Well, it was actually interesting because we had a couple of them, and one Ryan rode one and I rode one, and mine was actually pretty comfortable, but his was not comfortable. We swapped, and I'm like, man, he's like, this thing's terrible down the trail, and it had to do with the fact that they have the ability to change, some of the suspension reaction and stuff, and so it was too much. It was built for pulling.
Yeah, we were riding it single, and they had the suspension set up at the moment for
double and carrying some
passenger plus cargo.
So it was pretty rough because it'll hold 130 pounds plus passengers.
Yeah, those things will hold more cargo than our Honda Ridgeline.
Yeah, so
like big old case on the back.
But great sleds. I mean, fun to it's not really the kind of riding that we do all the time, but we kept saying, man, if you owned a cabin, if you had a place where you needed to get some stuff into, I mean, they've really done a good job of, they even had a tote that comes apart in different pieces that you can section off for tools versus gear. And so, I mean, it's, from the utility side, they're pretty awesome. And then they had one that was a little bit more of a, kind of a crossover, I guess, that was a lot of fun down the trails.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that was the Extreme. So you're 20-inch wide track and with 1.5-inch lug.
Yep, 1.5-inch lug.
I don't think that thing is getting stopped. It's like a snowcat.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the suspension on it felt like a Lynx. Like it would absorb anything. Yeah, like super long travel and just plush.
And I think that one had the 850 in it, right?
Was it a turbo?
I think it was. I think it was an 850 turbo, not the 900 turbo.
Yeah, the 900 Ace turbo was the 4-stroke.
Yeah,
and we had some of those, and then we had the 850 E-Tech turbo. Yeah, so the Blue Extreme was the 850 E-Tech turbo.
Yeah,
that thing was fun.
It's fun.
That thing was a blast.
That's cool.
We're gonna get one of those as a demo unit next year, but it's yours.
I'll take it.
You're
the extra tall windshields for
the
make
sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Great sleds.
I'll start working out.
Yeah, it goes back to the 90s when every mountain sled had a big old windshield on it.
Yeah.
Even the small windshields was a big windshield by today's standards.
Yeah, that's pretty much non-existent now.
No, there's no windshield.
Yeah.
No, but that was a lot of fun. Thanks to you for letting us ride that stuff. We, like I said, we ride that stuff once or twice a year, and that's the week we ride it. Sneak peek, just to get out and see what's new on it. I will say on the free ride, the 2026 free ride, the only change it gets is the thinner tunnel material, but it's still got the full length radiator. So not a lot changed on the free ride.
Didn't shorten the tunnel either on that one. Okay.
Same thing on there, just thinner material. Okay, now we're gonna wrap up this episode on the 2026 Skidoo Summit X, and next episode is going to be the 2026 Skidoo Summit Expert, and we'll talk about the Expert NA and Turbo. That one is lighter, not as light, it didn't get the weight reduction, all the weight reduction stuff that the X got, but it got a new front end, a 32-inch wide front end. We're going to talk about that because that was a pretty wild experience. But tune into that. Go hit SnoWest.com. Check out our merchandise, shirts, hats, stickers. If you're listening to this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. That helps us out. We appreciate the support. Appreciate you listening. If you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're following the show. Same with Spotify. And go check out past episodes. We're over 100 episodes, and we're almost to 1 million downloads.
Nice.
So these things are going pretty well. So
That's awesome.
appreciate the support. Thanks for listening.